Hi, good day to all my year 11 students. So today I'm going to conduct an intensive seminar for you to prepare yourself before sitting for your 0500 first language English paper. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing the slides with all of you. Okay, so I hope that you could view the slides. Okay, I'm just going to make my video available at the top right of the screen. Okay, great. Okay, so yes, let's start with today's seminar. Okay, so we'll be covering everything that you need to know about your paper 1 reading and also paper 2 directed writing and composition. So before we start, I just would like to start with a very simple yet a meaningful quote. Success all depends on the second letter. So you can obviously say the second letter, which is you. Okay, so your hard work and dedication, and then your skills, then your techniques, everything very important in order to succeed or to get good marks for your 0500 first language English paper. So let me start with the seminar outline. Okay, so we have section 1 focusing on paper 1 reading. So always remember the components tested in paper 1: reading comprehension, summary, short answer, writer's craft, or in other words, writer's effect. And also finally, we have extended response. And also, when we talk about paper 2, composition, there are 2 major components tested. The first one is directed writing and descriptive or narrative. So for this both papers, we will be looking in detail on the component breakdown and the most importantly, the examination techniques and also the examiner's advice. Okay, now moving on. Paper 1, reading comprehension, summary task, short answer question, language task, and also extended response. So when we look at all these components tested in paper 1, requires you to answer within 2 hours, and the total marks would be 80. Okay, and you need to answer 3 compulsory questions based on 3 texts, and generally the topic or the themes for each of the texts given would be similar. Okay, and you are definitely required to write your answers in the question paper. And remember that text A and text B will be about 700 to 750 words in length. Compared to text C, it will be 500 to 650 words. But obviously text C is one of the most important texts, as it will be focusing on major questions like your short answer, your language, and also extended response. Okay, and also you need to spend about 15 minutes for your for you to read all the text. Okay, and by the way, it depends on the candidate's technique. So in case if they feel that they need less than 15 minutes in skimming or even scanning the text, then go ahead. But again, it's all depends on how well you practice, like what we believe in practice makes perfect. Okay, and then all the reading text will be printed in the reading insert. Okay, now let me start with the first question: reading comprehension and summary task. So reading comprehension and summary tasks carry 30 marks. Okay, and when we talk about summary task 30 marks here, it is focusing on you to respond to text A. So text A, and talking about reading comprehension, it also focuses on short answers, testing your understanding on both explicit and also implicit meaning. That means how well you can read, understand explicit, implicit, and also how well you can extract or scan for a specific answer to be put as part of your answer for your reading comprehension, which carries about 15 marks. And also for summary tasks, you are required to respond to text B. So it's going to be a different text. And remember, your word count matters when it comes to summary writing. If you have given more than 120 words, that means you have included unnecessary points, or you have most probably included examples or comments or opinions. In case if you have written, let's say 80 words, 90 words, most probably you have missed some important points which you're supposed to put in your summary writing. Okay, and summary writing obviously involves a reading assessment objectives, which is 10 marks. That means we will look at your ability to read, extract both implicit and explicit meanings, and at the same time the ability of you to use the correct or specific information to cater the requirement of the question. Okay, and that is for reading assessment. And we have about 5 marks for writing assessment, which involves you like organizing all the points that you have extracted, and then how well you could paraphrase them, and how well you could structure your points according to the correct use of sentence structure. And also don't forget your GPSS, that means your grammar, punctuation, spelling, and also your sentence structure. Okay, now moving on, this is how your reading comprehension questions will look like. So you have 6 sub questions. Like we look at that, it's going to be A, B, C, D, E, and every single question requires different skills. So let me move on to the specific part of the question. So this is going to be the first style of question, which is, okay, asking the candidates to give 2 examples of invasive non-native species in the UK according to the text. So the keyword involved in this particular question is give. So whenever you see the word give, or even you see the word identify, it means that you are supposed to get the answer from the text. This is definitely an explicit question. Okay, so when we talk about explicit question, we are straight away looking for direct answer taken from the text. That means we are going to look for 2 examples of invasive non-native species, and according to the text here, they are Asian hornet and giant hogweed. So by just giving these 2 answers, you can get 2 complete marks. That means you'll be getting 2 marks for this particular question. So we call this as a short answer question. Question 1A. And moving on, question 1B is focusing more on understanding the language. So what do you mean by understanding the language? By looking at the question, you will know. Using your own words, explain what the text means by, so permanently off limit, an example of phrase given here. So they can give you a phrase, or also they can assess you on particular word. Therefore, your job here is for you to translate. Remember, when they ask you to use your own words, it means that you need to translate. And also translate means you need to come up with synonyms. So in this case, when we look at permanently off limits, okay, and it carries 2 marks, therefore your answer should have 2 complete ideas. That means, example here, forever and lastingly should be the key idea for the word permanently, and not allowed to enter or entry prohibited for off limits. Therefore, you can get 2 marks for this question. Okay, so remember, 2 marks will be awarded for full explanation and 1 mark for partial explanation. Okay, now moving on. The third question is all about you giving reasons. So if you look at the question, the nature of the question will clearly explains the demand, or what exactly it requires you to put as the answer. So here, give 2 reasons why environmentalists are likely to be concerned by the latest reports on the Amazon rainforest. So here you are required to give 2 reasons. So when you talk about 2 reasons, giving, this word give here, reflecting an explicit idea, therefore answers should be taken from the text. So yeah, this is the text. Okay, soaring deforestation coupled with the destructive policies of Brazil's far-right president, Jair Bolsonaro, could push the Amazon rainforest dangerously to an irreversible tipping point within 2 years, a prominent economist has said. So here, 2 reasons why the environmentalist likely to be concerned. Okay, definitely because of soaring deforestation. You can definitely take it directly from the text, or in case if you would like to put it in your own words, make sure that you do not change the original idea or the actual context. So you can put it as the destruction of forest, cutting down of trees within a large area, or the Amazon is rapidly increasing. So here you can get 1 mark. And also you have another reason. So what is the other reason? Political plans with extremely damaging consequences. So here you're focusing on destructive policies. And finally, you could also include this part. It may not be possible to undo the damage caused by the destruction. Okay, so you just need to choose 2 best answers and then put it as part of your finalized answer. Therefore, you can easily get 2 marks. Okay, moving on. For question 1D, it requires you to identify 2 points. So again, the word identify is there. Therefore, this is definitely reflecting an explicit understanding of the question. So identify 2 main reasons scientists are considering editing the DNA of avocados for commercial purposes. So by reading the text, you can get the reasons, like in this case, okay, it could resist disease or survive in drier condition, and avocado supply chain, and also it increases the price. Therefore, 1 mark will be given for per point. So up to a maximum of 2 marks will be given for this question. Therefore, your answer could be, they will be able to grow more resilient avocados. Okay, that means they can still grow with less rain or fight against disease, as we have mentioned about disease, and we have mentioned about drier conditions. Okay, and you can also mention fewer difficulties in supplying consumers with avocados. Okay, you talk about the avocado supply chain here, and then finally you mentioned about the price of avocados will be more stable, as you are mentioning about price increases here. So this will definitely serve 2 marks for this question. Great. And the last part of this question 1 would be explanation kind of question, where it requires you to explain why it may be prudent to limit screen time for toddlers, example, and you need to, you've been given with 3 marks for this question. So seems that you need to explain generally, explain, or explaining in your own words. So according to this text, what are the reasons why we need to limit the screen time for toddlers would be hold back toddlers' development. So here you can change it to, it could make them develop at a slower rate. And we have an idea of lower scores in milestone test of communication, problem solving, interpersonal skills, and physical condition, which you could change it to reduce their ability to use language with and relate to others effectively. Or you can also mention about deficient or delayed development in language, communication, motor skills, and socio-emotional health. That means it could hamper their physical and emotional progress. Okay, now next, question 1E as summary. Okay, so according to this question, you need to use your own words and explain why some people disagree with schools giving pupils homework. Okay, you may also be given with this question, okay, with 3 marks. Okay, so this is an example of answer. Okay, now why some people disagree with schools giving pupils homework. Okay, so 3 marks, that means we are looking for 3 reasons why. So what is the first reason? Homework can add to pressures and stresses in many pupils' homes. Teachers may not be able to empathize with problems faced by pupils outside school and may disadvantage those with disorganized home lives, like implication of those from lower class, and also no help available for some peoples at home. This can be demoralizing and potentially result in a worse understanding of a topic. So these are the points which have been summarized in the candidate's words without taking directly or without copying word by word from the original text. Okay, and to answer question 2, sorry, it's not supposed to be question 1, it's supposed to be, yeah, question 1, but it's the other component under question 1, which is summary task. So before I start in detail, perhaps I'm just going to share with you guys some of the examiner's advice. Okay, number 1, it's not a general summing up of a passage. Therefore, you need to focus on specific ideas, only relevant ideas based on the question. And you need to focus on exact wording of the question. Okay, and in case if you have repeated ideas in your answer, then the examiner would put R, that means repetition, or PNM, that means point not made. So you do not need to have introduction and conclusion for your summary. And even though you are advised to get about 10 points, try to get more than 10. Or maybe you can even put up to 12 points in your summary writing. Okay, moving on, you've been given with 5 marks for writing. Therefore, you must be able to show clear evidence, concise structure, and also make sure that you use your own words in writing the summary. Okay, so you will definitely lose marks if your summary is in the wrong form. For an example, if you have included repetition, direct speech, figurative language, minor details, all these are definitely unnecessary in order to write a perfect summary. And also, don't forget to use your own words whenever possible. But in case if there are any specific jargons or any what do you call it, certain um, terminology, okay, or any technical words being used, therefore it's totally fine if you do not paraphrase them or if you do not find synonym, because certain jargons stand as a technical word instead of finding another word to replace the original idea. And we advise students to use complex sentences when writing summary. Okay, and these are the 5 steps in order to write a good summary. Okay, read and underline relevant material. Okay, that's the first thing that you need to do. Like I put here, there are about 10 points altogether, but try to get about 13 to 15, and then you can obviously choose the best 12 maybe. And then transfer all the points into a plan. While changing them, make sure that you paraphrase, you try to put all the points in your own words. So again, when you paraphrase, when you plan it, make sure that you put the points logically. That means according to the order, according to the numbers, or maybe from the paragraph, that means from first paragraph to the second paragraph. That means you will have a good cohesion, and also there's going to be a good unity in your writing. And remember, when you are writing the summary, you just need to use 1 paragraph. So you do not need to have too many paragraphs, and therefore try to vary your sentence structures as well. And check your summary Okay, for accurate expression, you need to also adapt the length. Do not override it or do not write it too less. And also check if you have included any repetitive points. Okay, great. Next, I'm pretty sure that many students are very curious about how to paraphrase. How am I supposed to change the original idea into my own words? By the way, there are a few ways. Number one, you can obviously change the word form of part of speech. For an example, beautiful, you can change it to beautifully. That means you are eventually changing the parts of speech. That means from a verb to an adverb, or maybe from a noun, you're changing it to adverb. Like for an example, intelligent, you change it to intelligence. So that is definitely one of the ways how you could paraphrase. Okay, and obviously you can change from active to passive voice. Okay, or you can change it to from passive to active voice. Okay, and changing the word order can also be another form of paraphrasing skill. And then you can obviously change from specific idea to general idea, and you can always change the transitions, like if you're giving a contradictory idea, then you put there in contrast, but maybe you can change it to in addition instead of in contrast by changing the overall idea without by changing the overall words without changing the context. And obviously this is going to be the easiest way to paraphrase, which is using synonym. Okay, great. So this is an example of October-November paper. I'm just worried that we might not have enough time to do everything in this session. Therefore, you can keep it as a reference. Okay. And I'm going to move on to my second question. Okay, explanation for the second question. So remember that second question is based on text C. Okay, it is short answer and also language task question. So for short answer question and language task, basically this particular section carries 25 marks. So this question requires you to respond to text C. Okay, and for short answer question, it's going to be a quite not to say easy, even though it does not really require you to put higher order thinking skills, because most of the answers could be extracted from the text. Or I would say that even when you are putting your own answer, it involves a lot of translation, except for the last part of the question, whereby you are supposed to write more on the writer's effect part. Okay, and it carries 10 marks as it's only focusing on reading assessment objective. Okay, that means the ability for you to read and extract the point, and then ability you to try to connect to what the writer thinks. Okay, and for the second part of the question, which is language task, or I would say writer's effect or writer's craft. Okay, the candidates are required to give answer between 200 to 300 words. Okay, and this is obviously focusing on reading assessment objectives, like ability for you to identify correct words or phrases which contain strong imagery, so that you could write a better analysis of the language used by the writer in the text. Okay, now this is definitely an overview of question 2. So the first part of the question is 4 marks, which requires the candidates to copy out the word or phrase which suggests the same idea as the words underlined within the paraphrased phrase from the text. Okay, so they can give you words, they can give you phrases. Okay, so the key idea is you need to find the accurate answer from the original text. Okay, now the second part of the question, okay, which requires you to provide synonym. That means you're just going to give brief explanation for 3 underlined words from a short extract from the text. Now looking at 2C, you've been given with 3 marks, therefore you just need to choose one example of a phrase or a word. Okay, and then you're going to write a comprehensive detail about the selected word or phrases. okay, sorry, a selected word or a phrase. And the challenging part would be 2D, which carries the highest mark for this particular question section. So it's going to be 15 marks, whereby you will be given 2 different paragraphs to read, and you are going to look for 3 words or phrases which include imagery from each paragraph given. Therefore, you are going to come up with 6 quotations from these paragraphs, and you are obviously going to explore about the meaning, the literal meaning, their connotations. That means we talk about shades of meaning, okay, from the writer's point of view, and also how exactly the readers would feel when they come across with all these words. Okay, so this is an example of the first question. Okay, identify a word or phrase from the text which suggested the same idea as the words underlined. So this is an example. Okay, his green was both timid and self-assured. So when you talk about his green here, the keyword green means you talk about a bright smile. Okay, so in this particular paragraph, you need to look for the idea about his green. Okay, therefore you can easily get the answer for the word timid. Okay, moving on. I have even come up with a simplified version here. Okay, I hope that you can try to get the overall understanding of this text easily, as this is like a condensed text from the original. Okay, from the original paragraph. Okay, great. So in using your own words, explain what the writer means by each of the words underlined. Okay, so here, discussed, divined, bent. So all you need to do is just need to get one idea to replace this idea discussed. So therefore you can come up with strong disapproval or dislike, disdain, revulsion. Okay, and when you talk about divine, so what could be the possible synonym for the word divine, and bent, what could be the possible synonyms for the word bent. Okay, and talking about 2C, okay, so you are required to use one example from the text below to explain how the writer suggests charity's experiences. So in your answer, you need to have one example. You need to include one example, and this example is supposed to be put with the quotation mark. That means you need to quote this example, and then you need to explain this quotation by referring to what the writer is suggesting in the question. Like according to this question, the writer is suggesting charity's experiences and feelings. Therefore, when you write the answer, your answer should basically focusing on charity's experiences and feelings. So always remember that in order to get full 3 marks, you need to come up with an appropriate example. That means the selection of your word or phrase must be appropriate, and also you need to have comprehensive explanation, not merely lame or vague or plain explanation. Okay, and in case if you have an appropriate example with just a little attempt to explain, therefore you will be given 2 marks. But in case if your answer okay, have an example of the phrase or of the word, okay, but with an explanation which shows a little awareness of charity experiences and feelings, and let's say if you have a partial understanding of the question, therefore you can be given only with 1 mark. Okay, now moving on. This is definitely a sample response. Okay, so we can obviously give 3 marks, okay, for this example, because it consists of comprehensive explanation which shows understanding of how the writer suggests charity's experiences. So when you talk about charity's experiences here, entered into the glacial twilight. Okay, so this is obviously the selected phrase, and then Charity has gone into the library whilst it's getting dark. The sun is setting outside. Okay, so there are likely to be shadows within the darkening room. Meanwhile, the adjective glacial suggests that the room feels icily cold. This may be both a literal low temperature, but also figurative. She hates the place so much that she feels frozen when inside. So when you look at all these keywords, getting dark, and then shadow, darkening room, feels icily cold, low temperature, and then the use of figurative idea here, like she feels it's like frozen inside. And obviously all these keywords are related to Charity's experiences and feelings. Okay, moving on. This is how a writer's effect question looks like. Okay, if you look at the word highlighted in blue, reread the description of, that means you are required to give your answer in a very descriptive manner. And the words highlighted in green are basically the subject for each part of the question. For an example, here, the rainforest and its wildlife. So you need to focus on the rainforest and the wildlife. And this purple word here referring to where you can get, that means the location of your answer. So here, based on paragraph 1, you have to look for words and phrases which contain descriptive language about the rainforest and the wildlife. And again, in paragraph 4, you're going to look at descriptive language. That means you're going to look for words and phrases which contain descriptive element, okay, referring to Julia's walk through the rainforest in search of her parents. And you are required to get 3 powerful words or phrases from each paragraph. Therefore, in total, you'll be having 6 words and 6 words or phrases. And make sure that all these words and phrases selected should contain strong imagery, so that you can explain effectively why the writer has used such words in the passage, or what kind of effect this particular words are creating when a reader reads it. Okay, and the most important part of your writer's effect would be what the examiners would like to share. Number 1, you need to understand that the examiner is giving so much of importance on the specific vocabulary. That means you need to use powerful commentary, you need to use powerful vocabulary, sophisticated ideas in order to answer this language task. Okay, and obviously it aims to find relevant quotation to support each of your points. So the quotation you put in, I mean the evidence you put in quotation mark. Okay, and choose the strongest example. Not necessarily the first ones you come to must be the answer. Okay, and do not leave the whole chunks of text, okay, like clump quotations. We do not want to see this in your answer. And do not select quotation which you do not understand. Always choose words or phrases which allow you to come up with a better analysis. Do not repeat the words used in it. Okay, do not repeat quotations. Try to avoid generalized and also gushing comments saying that, yeah, this is a very good explanation. Okay, this explanation is well done by the writer. So avoid over generalization, or in fact vague comments. Okay, and it's very important for you to use all your 5 senses. That means when you come across this particular word, you need to smell it, you have to taste it. You know, you just need to imagine if you are in the situation and you're going through it and you happen to experience the emotions or feelings which the writer has put it in particular word choice. Therefore, how would you express it? Okay, and avoid starting each explanation in the same way. For an example, according to the writer, blah blah blah. So the writer has said that blah blah blah. So you are not supposed to come up with a very monotonous style of answering it. Okay, and since you should not write the quotation and words again, I can suggest you okay, inserting your knowledge of literary devices here. For an example, in case if you are going to write about a simile, instead of writing one particular sentence just to introduce that this is a simile, you can straight away put it as part of the bridge word that this simile shows the reader that the author uses this metaphor to illustrate. This example of imagery conveys a sense of what? By using personification, the author subtly shows the reader what. So if you can look at these examples of sentence beginners, and they clearly mention about a certain literary devices which will eventually, um, you know, which will eventually be part of your answers for a part of your answers in your writer's effect part. Okay, and remember that you need to give a full range of explanation based on the effect. Okay, and remember, whenever you give general effect, like, okay, you can basically get the examiner's attention better. That means when before you start analyzing the particular text, you can obviously mention about what is the overall idea of the text. For an example, if that particular paragraph focus that one, let's say one particular paragraph focuses on happiness, that means words related to happiness, therefore the general effect of the text is happiness. So before you start analyzing, perhaps you can just tell in general, okay, what is the overall idea of the subject being described in that particular paragraph. Okay, and obviously there is no right or wrong answer for this particular section. It's all about the ability to convince the readers about the reasons why the writer has used such words. Okay. Okay, so let me continue again. Okay, so obviously you guys know about your writer's effect frame, PE, point, evidence, and also explanation. So first of all, what do you mean by point here? What is the overall idea, okay, of the selected word or a selected phrase? So you're going to quote it, putting a literal meaning to it, and then you can continue with the implicit meaning. So when you talk about implicit meaning, it could be part of the connotations and effects. Okay, so I have given you some example of, or maybe an example of a complete writer's effect writing frame. The writer creates the impression of what in paragraph 1. The word, the selected word, helps to create this effect. It literally means, however, it also suggests. The word has connotations of. The writer uses this word to create an image of. So this could be your sentence starters, okay, when you're using PE writing frame. And don't forget to use strong evaluative verbs, or just to show that you are analyzing the language. For an example, creates, you can also change it to causes, produces, forms, constructs. The word impression, influence, reaction, effect, impact, result. Okay, and I've also added more examples for however, suggest, connotations, and also image. Okay, so I do not want to go in detail as I have a lot of other components to be shared. Okay, therefore I am going to let you to read this, something that we have done in the class, so you can keep this marking scheme as a clear reference. Okay, so if you look at this, okay, Julia's experience of rainforest is a frightening and painful place to be alone in deep darkness. So the first line itself gives a general effect. Okay, and then the following sentences are focusing more on the detailed part of PE, whereby, you know, all the points taken are put, or you can say that you need to quote the words and also the phrases. For an example, deep darkness, staggered, and then this and then this screaming jungle. So always make a complete PEE set for each of the selected words or phrases. Okay, and this is going to be the last part of paper 1, which is extended response. Okay, extended response is one of the most important components tested in paper 1. Why? Because it carries 25 marks, and again you are required to provide response based on text C. Okay, and you are required to write 250 to 350 words. So remember that you might be asked to write a letter. It could be a formal or informal. It could be a report, it could be a journal, speech, interview, or even an article. But remember that 15 marks will be given for the reading assessment. That means how well you can read, extract implicit, explicit, and extract the details which you're going to use to develop your answer further. And also 10 marks for writing assessment, where we would like to see how well you can put your thoughts in your your thoughts into your writing, and we're going to see how well you're going to organize and structure your points, and some random writing skills like vocabulary, sentence structure. The register is very important so that it would set the tone or the style of your answer, whether it's going to be formal or informal, and eventually it will affect the choice of the vocabulary as well in your answer. And finally, your GPS, grammar, punctuation, spelling, and also another S for sentence structure. Okay, so this is an example of question for writer's effect. So when you get this question, obviously the words highlighted in turquoise, basically focusing on the register. That means here you need to write as a both the reporter and as a Julia's parents. Okay, and again, the purpose is for you to write to explain about the entire experience. Okay, and it's going to be a newspaper interview. This will obviously tell you about the format in detail. Okay, and what made you choose to visit the rainforest in Ecuador with your daughter Julia? How did Julia's accident happen, and what did she do to survive? What are your thoughts and feelings towards the Aquar people and their way of life? So always think about the focus of the question. Like here, what are the keywords? The reasons for visiting rainforests. Okay, and then it's all about how the accident happened and what did she do to survive. And finally, you're going to share thoughts and feelings. That means in your answers you need to include words related to thoughts and feelings. Okay, and write the words of the interview beginning with the first question. Now this 1.5 and 2 sides are not really stated in the latest syllabus or even for the past few years. Now it's all about you answering 250 to 350 words. Clear? So this is basically how do you analyze a writer's effect question before you start answering. Okay, now in order to answer extended response question, please make sure that that whatever passages that you're going to get will be basically on person, place, or in fact both. And we always focus on PDD, point, detail, development. If you just take the details from the text and then you put it as your answer, then obviously you are not going to get high marks for it. Therefore, you can extract the details and then you need to develop the points in your own words. Therefore, you can obviously secure a higher mark for reading. So if you're aiming to score 15 full marks, make sure that you adapt the details from the passage to suit the task. Okay, and you can obviously highlight the material because you're allowed to do so on the reading insert. But in case if you feel like you may ended up highlighting details which are not really relevant or you wrongly highlighted the ideas, therefore I would always suggest students to use a pencil. Okay, now do not need to be so tempted to add extra sections. Okay, so if you feel like a particular detail is relevant, then you use it. Do not drift away from the original text. Okay, and you can obviously use your words here and there. That means we do highly encourage you to change the idea into your own words, and again by using appropriate tone and style. Okay, now, so when we talk about extended response, I want you to clearly look at this RAFT as the RAFT technique. So what do you mean by RAFT techniques? You need to know the role, who am I writing the, maybe it could be a letter, it could be a magazine article, but the most important thing is, who am I writing as? Audience, who am I writing to? Format, which format would best suit your response? And what am I writing about? That means you need to address 3 bullet points in the question. So this is a traditional way of or style of putting the task. That means you need to know that you will be getting 3 bullet points as a question in order to answer. And obviously you are required to use strong verbs in your answer. And make sure that when you are writing your extended response question, you need to suggest, you need to strongly suggest, you're strongly suggested to focus on the 3 bullet points. That means you can have one introduction. Generally, introduction consists of the purpose of your letter or of your magazine article, or maybe your interview. So basically, you can come up with a little introduction by mentioning the purpose, and then you can obviously continue, okay, writing the paragraphs, okay, and finally you need to check your answers for grammar, punctuation, spelling, and sentence structure. So this is actually a sample candidate's answer, okay. And when you look at this question here, what made you to choose to visit the rainforest in Ecuador with your daughter Julia? Eventually this will be the first question. You do not need to come up with your own question, and this will stand alone as the first question. Okay, now, well, Ecuador is a beautiful, biologically diverse nation. So if you look at this, these are all the keywords: beautiful, biologically diverse, and both parents are biologists. Therefore, they couldn't they couldn't resist the opportunity of witnessing this amazing experience. Okay, and they have also brought their daughters along with them, uh, and yes, in this jungle, and this jungle is quite remote. How do you know? Because it's accessible by plane, and it has really magnificent landscape and also plethora of wildlife. And then there is no place else like it in the world, making it a hidden treasure stowed away for a select few to have the pleasure of visiting. So therefore, I've given some feedback. Generally, this particular candidate has done justice for the first bullet point. Therefore, she has included most of the important points on the reasons why Julia and also her parents visited rainforest in Ecuador. Okay, but it's just that I personally feel that it's about 93 words, and this particular candidate could go up to 120 words. So some points related to the aqua community can be added there, because I just feel like that part is not highly or importantly mentioned in this particular answer. Okay, now next is it's all about how Julia's accident happened. If you look at all the keywords here, first of all, it's a description about the tour guide or the jungle guide. Okay, and then again you have idea like yes, drizzling and then transforming into a furious storm, and then she ended up losing the ground, and then it was very slippery. Okay, so all these answers are related to the first focus of the question, which is how the accident happened and how did she survive. What did she do to survive? Obviously she utilized the survival skills, like survival trainings which she had before, and she was a very determined person, as she continuously telling herself not to give in. Like she also continuously getting what you call that, that motivation from the parents not to give in, like it was the inner voice. Okay, now moving on, the last part of the question: what are your thoughts and feelings towards the awkward people and their way of life? So this question focusing on what are your thoughts and feelings, therefore you need to include key ideas for both. For an example, I feel incredibly thankful. Okay, it's definitely one. It could be a thought, or it could also, yeah, it is a thought. Okay, I mean, they saved my daughter's life. We are in awe of how efficiently they work in sync to find Julia. So here, how they have worked efficiently. Okay, how they have nursed her back to health. So basically, they are amazingly talented people. They are well educated about the medicinal properties of all plants under the sun, and she greatly admired their strong sense of community and generosity, as they are trustworthy, kind, and caring people. Okay, so I would say that the points are well covered. Therefore, I have given level 4, that means 12 points for the reading, and I have given, sorry, okay, I've given level 4, that means 8 marks for the reading, and I have given how many marks for the writing? So 15, 20 minus 8, 12. So 12 for the writing. Therefore, the total marks that this particular candidate has scored was 20 over 25. Okay, so I hope that this detailed seminar would be very helpful for you. Therefore, I'm ending my seminar for 0500 paper 1, focusing on reading. Okay, that means reading comprehension, summary task, and then you have short answer questions, and then you have writer's craft, and also extended response. So thank you very much and have a nice day.